Lisa Martinez rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the screens again. She had been working for 12 hours straight at the deep space monitoring station called Horizon's Edge. The station was far from Earth, floating in the empty darkness between the stars. Lisa's job was to listen for signals from space, but most days she only heard the quiet hum of cosmic noise. Today was different. At first she thought it was just another piece of space junk sending out random signals. Ships broke down all the time in deep space, and their broken radios would send out strange sounds. But this signal was not like the others. It was weak, but it had a pattern. Someone or something was trying to send a message. Lisa leaned forward in her chair and adjusted the controls. The signal was coming from very far away, from the direction of the Vega star system. She had never heard anything like it before. It was not human, but it was definitely intelligent. Captain Jake Sullivan walked into the communications room carrying a cup of coffee. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his years fighting in the Outer Rim wars. Jake had seen many strange things in space, but he always kept a calm head. "What do you have, Martinez?" Jake asked, looking over her shoulder at the screens. "I'm not sure, Captain. There's a signal coming from Vega. It's been going for about an hour now. Listen to this." Lisa played the recording through the speakers. The room filled with strange sounds. It was like music, but sad and desperate. There were clicks and whistles mixed with deep, low tones. Jake frowned and listened carefully. "Probably just interference," Jake said. "Space does weird things to radio signals sometimes." "I don't think so, sir. There's a pattern here. Someone is trying to talk." Ryan Kelly, the station's computer expert, heard the conversation and came over. He was young, maybe 25, with messy brown hair and thick glasses. Ryan was the kind of person who could fix any computer problem but had trouble talking to people. "Can I take a look?" Ryan asked. He sat down at another computer and started typing fast. "I'll run it through the translation program." The translation program was something humans had built to help them understand alien languages. So far, they had only met a few alien species, and most of them were friendly. But the program could break down any language into basic parts and try to make sense of it. Jake watched Ryan work. "How long will this take?" "Give me 20 minutes, Ryan said, not looking up from his screen. While Ryan worked, Lisa kept listening to the signal. It was getting stronger, which meant the source was getting closer to Earth or using more power. She started to feel worried. What if this was not a friendly message? Dr. Amanda Foster walked into the room. She was the station's expert on alien life forms. Amanda was a small woman with short red hair and smart green eyes. She had studied aliens for 15 years and could tell you everything about their biology and culture. "I heard you found something interesting," Amanda said. "Maybe," Jake replied. "We're trying to figure out what it is." Amanda listened to the signal for a few minutes. Her face grew serious. "This sounds like a distress call." "How can you tell?" Lisa asked. "The tone, the repetition, the way it gets louder and softer. I've heard similar patterns from other species when they're in trouble." Ryan suddenly looked up from his computer. His face was pale. "Captain, you need to see this." Everyone gathered around Ryan's screen. Words were appearing as the computer translated the alien message. "Help us. They come. They eat worlds. They eat light. They eat hope." The room went quiet. Jake felt a cold chill run down his back. "Keep going," he said. More words appeared on the screen. "We are the Kethvar. Our home is Vega system. We send this message to the warriors of the third spiral. That is you. You must know. They consume everything. They grow stronger with each world they take." Lisa's hands were shaking as she typed commands into her computer. "Captain, this signal has been traveling through space for over 200 years. Amanda gasped. "That means the Kethvar sent this message 200 years ago. They might be dead," Jake finished. "They might all be dead." The translation continued. "We have fought them for 50 years. We cannot win. They learn too fast. They adapt too quickly. Our weapons do nothing. Our shields fail. Our people become food for their machines." Ryan's computer showed a star map with the message. It marked the path the enemy had taken through space, system by system. Each mark showed a dead world, a place where life had been wiped out. "Look at this," Ryan said, pointing at the map. "They're moving in a straight line. And if they keep going..." Jake studied the map and felt his blood turn cold. The path led directly toward human space, toward Earth. The final part of the message appeared on screen. "If anyone receives this, you must prepare. You must run, or you must fight better than we did. They call themselves the Devourers. They are coming. They are always coming. This is our last gift to the galaxy, a warning. Do not let our deaths be meaningless." The signal ended. The room was completely silent except for the hum of the computers. Jake looked at his team. Lisa was staring at the screen with wide eyes. Ryan was checking and rechecking his translation. Amanda was writing notes as fast as she could. "How long?" Jake asked quietly. "Sir?" Lisa replied. "How long until they reach human space?" Ryan did some quick calculations. "If they're still moving at the same speed, maybe 50 years. Maybe less if they've gotten faster." Jake walked to the big window that looked out into space. Millions of stars shone in the darkness, but they did not look beautiful anymore. They looked dangerous. Somewhere out there, something was eating worlds and heading toward Earth. "Martinez, send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them we need to talk to them right away. Foster, I want everything you can find about species that have gone extinct in the last few hundred years. Kelly, keep working on that translation. There might be more information in the signal." "What are you going to tell Earth?" Amanda asked. Jake looked back at the message on the screen. The words seemed to glow with warning and fear. "I'm going to tell them that we just received a message from a dead civilization, and that we might be next." The news reached Earth 3 days later. Admiral Patricia Hayes sat in her office on the top floor of Colonial Command, looking at the report from Horizon's Edge Station. She had been in charge of Earth Space Forces for 10 years, but she had never seen anything like this. Patricia was a tough woman who had worked her way up from a simple space pilot to the head of all human military forces. She had short gray hair and steel blue eyes that could make even the bravest soldiers nervous. But right now she felt scared. The door to her office opened and 5 people walked in. These were the most important leaders in human space. General Robert Kim controlled all ground forces. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was the top scientist on Earth. Senator Frank Miller spoke for the civilian government. Captain Lucy Brown ran the intelligence service. And Commander Nathan Brooks led the best fighter pilots in the galaxy. "You've all read the report," Patricia said. "What do we do?" Nathan Brooks spoke first. He was young for a commander, only 32, but he was the best pilot anyone had ever seen. His squadron had never lost a battle. Nathan had black hair and green eyes, and he always looked ready for a fight. "We need to go there," Nathan said. "We need to see what happened to the Kethvar. Maybe they left behind information that can help us." "That's a suicide mission," General Kim replied. Robert Kim was a big man with a thick beard. He had spent 20 years fighting on frontier worlds. "If these Devourers are still there, you'll be flying into a trap." Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward. Elena was small and quiet, but her mind was the sharpest on Earth. She had solved problems that no one else could even understand. "We need data. Right now we know nothing about this enemy. Nathan is right. Someone has to go look." Senator Miller shook his head. Frank was older than the others, maybe 60, with white hair and worried eyes. He spoke for the billions of people living on human worlds. "The people are already scared. If word gets out that we're sending ships toward this threat, there will be panic." "The people should be scared," Patricia said quietly. "If this report is true, we're all in danger." Captain Brown had been quiet, but now she spoke. Lucy was the person who knew all of Earth's secrets. Her job was to find out what enemies were planning before they could hurt humans. She was tall and thin with short blonde hair. "I've been checking our records. In the last 300 years, we've lost contact with 17 alien civilizations. We thought they just stopped talking to us. But what if they didn't stop talking? What if they were all destroyed?" The room went quiet. Everyone understood what Lucy meant. The Devourers had not just killed the Kethvar. They had been killing aliens for centuries, working their way across the galaxy toward human space. "How much time do we have?" Senator Miller asked. Elena looked at her notes. The original message was sent 200 years ago. If the enemy is still moving at the same speed, they could reach our outer colonies in 40 to 50 years. But if they've gotten faster, they could be here sooner. Patricia finished. Nathan stood up. "Then we can't waste time. Give me a fast ship and a good crew. I'll take 3 weeks to get to Vega, look around, and come back. If there's anything useful there, we'll find it." "And if you run into these devourers?" General Kim asked. "Then you'll know they're closer than we thought." Patricia thought for a long time. Nathan was asking to risk his life and the lives of his crew, but they needed information. Fighting an unknown enemy was impossible. "All right," she said finally. "Take your best people. But Nathan, if you see any sign of danger, you run. Don't try to be a hero. We need you to come back alive." While the leaders met on Earth, the news was spreading to other worlds. On New Detroit, the biggest factory planet in human space, Danny Walsh got the emergency message during his lunch break. Danny was the supervisor of the biggest shipyard in the galaxy. His factories built the cargo ships that carried goods between the stars. Danny was a practical man who solved problems with hard work and smart thinking. He had brown hair that was always messy, and hands that were always dirty from working with machines. When he read the message, he knew what had to be done. Danny called a meeting of all his workers. There were thousands of people in the big factory hall. Men and women who had spent their lives building peaceful ships looked up at him with worried faces. "We just got word from Earth," Danny said, his voice echoing through the building. "There's a threat coming our way, something that destroys entire worlds. Earth Command needs warships, and they need them fast." Karen Murphy, a teacher who worked part-time at the factory, raised her hand. She was a gentle woman with kind eyes, who had never thought about war before. "How many ships do they need?" "As many as we can build," Danny replied. "We're converting all production lines to military ships. No more cargo vessels, no more passenger ships, just warships." Steve Parker, one of the best mechanics in the factory, stood up. Steve was a quiet man who could fix anything, but he rarely spoke in meetings. "What about our families? What about the civilian ships people need?" Danny looked around the room at all the worried faces. These were good people who had lived peaceful lives. They built things, they didn't destroy them. But now they had to learn. "Our families won't matter if we're all dead," Danny said. "Right now the most important thing is building ships that can fight. Ships that can protect Earth and all our colonies." The meeting lasted for 2 hours. By the end, everyone understood what they had to do. The age of peace was over. Humanity was going to war against an enemy they had never seen. On other worlds, similar meetings were happening. Soldiers were training harder. Scientists were working on new weapons. Pilots were learning to fly fighter ships instead of passenger shuttles. But the most important meeting was happening on Horizon's Edge Station. Captain Jake Sullivan was talking to the Kethvar message again, trying to find more clues. Dr. Amanda Foster had been studying the alien language for 3 days straight. She had dark circles under her eyes and her red hair was messy, but she had found something important. "Jake, look at this," she said, pointing to her computer screen. "There's more to the message, hidden data that we missed before." "What kind of data?" "Star charts, tactical information, and something else." Amanda's voice was excited but scared. The Kethvar weren't the first civilization to fight the Devourers. They mentioned other species that tried to stop them. All of them failed, but they all left information for whoever came next. Jake felt a spark of hope. "You mean there might be weapons we can use? Battle plans?" "Maybe. Or maybe just mistakes we can learn from." Amanda looked up at him with tired but determined eyes. "Jake, what if the Kethvar didn't just send us a warning? What if they sent us the keys to winning a war that's been going on for thousands of years?" Outside the station, space looked the same as always. Stars shining in the darkness, beautiful and peaceful. But now everyone knew the truth. Somewhere in that darkness, death was coming toward them. The question was simple. Would humanity be ready when it arrived? Commander Nathan Brooks sat in his ship, the lightning strike, as it came out of jump space near the Vega system. He had been traveling for 3 weeks with his best crew. Maria Santos was his pilot, a woman who could fly through an asteroid, field with her eyes closed. Tony Rodriguez was the weapons expert who had never missed a target. Sam Carter was the engineer who could fix anything with spare parts and determination, but nothing had prepared them for what they saw. The Vega system was dead. Where planets should have been, there were only hollow shells. The beautiful blue world that the HFY had called home was gone, replaced by a metal framework that stretched across space like a giant skeleton. Strange, geometric shapes floated where moons used to be, pulsing with dark red light. "My God," Maria whispered, staring at the screens. She was a tough pilot who had seen combat in 3 wars, but her hands were shaking on the controls. Tony checked his weapon systems, even though they all knew their small ship could not fight. Whatever had done this? He was a big man with steady nerves, but his voice was tight with fear. What could do something like this? Sam was scanning the remains of the planets with his instruments. He was the youngest member of the team, only 24, but he was brilliant with technology. "The mass is all wrong," he said quietly. "These structures have the same weight as the original planets, but they're arranged completely differently. It's like someone took apart entire worlds and built something else with the pieces." Nathan felt sick as he looked at the dead system. "Take us closer to what used to be the home world. Stay alert for any movement." As they flew deeper into the system, they began to see more details. The metal structures were not random. They formed patterns, like circuit boards the size of planets. Energy flowed through channels carved into what used to be solid rock. The whole system had been turned into one massive machine. "Commander," Sam said suddenly, "I'm getting life signs." Everyone on the bridge turned to look at him. "Where?" Nathan asked. "In the asteroid belt. Very faint, but definitely there." Nathan made a decision that could save them or kill them. "Take us there, but be ready to run." They found the survivors hiding inside a large asteroid that had been hollowed out and turned into a shelter. The asteroid was cold and dark, trying to avoid detection. When Nathan's ship approached, it took several minutes before the survivors answered their radio calls. The voice that finally responded was weak and scared. It spoke in the same language as the distress signal, but Sam's computer could translate it now. "Who are you? Are you the warriors from the third spiral?" "We are humans," Nathan replied through the translator. "We received your message. We came to help." There was a long silence. Then the voice spoke again, and this time it sounded like crying. "You came. After all this time, someone came." The survivors let Nathan's ship dock with their asteroid shelter. What they found inside broke their hearts. There were only 43 HFY left out of billions. They were thin and sick, living on the last of their supplies. But their leader, an old female named Zithara, still had fire in her eyes. Zithara was ancient by HFY standards, maybe 300 years old. Her skin was gray and her body was bent with age, but her mind was still sharp. She had been a warrior before her people were destroyed, and she remembered everything. "You should not have come," she told Nathan through the translator. "The Devourers will sense your presence. They will know that your species exists now." "Tell us about them," Nathan said. "We need to understand what we're fighting." Zithara's eyes grew dark. "They are not one species. They are many species, all joined together into one mind. Every race they destroy becomes part of them. They learn everything their victims knew. They take their technology, their weapons, their knowledge of war." Maria leaned forward. "How long have they been doing this?" "Millions of years. They started in the center of the galaxy and have been spreading outward ever since. My people were just the latest to fall." Tony asked the question they all feared. "How do they fight? What are their weapons like?" "They do not fight like you understand fighting," Zithara replied. "They do not try to defeat armies. They consume everything. Their ships release machines smaller than dust. These machines eat matter and turn it into more machines. A single ship can strip a planet bare in days." Sam was recording everything. on his computer. Is there any way to stop them? Sithara was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. There was a way. Long ago, before my people died, we discovered something. The Devourer's strength is also their weakness. What do you mean? Nathan asked. They are all connected. Every ship, every machine, every absorbed mind is part of one giant consciousness. They think together, move together, act together. This makes them incredibly powerful. But, Nathan pressed, but if that connection could be broken even for a short time, they would become confused. Millions of individual minds that have forgotten how to think alone. In that moment of chaos, they could be defeated. Tony sat up straighter. How do you break the connection? We called it quantum static. It required generators placed at specific points around their fleet. The mathematics were incredibly complex. We had built the generators and were ready to use them when... Zithara's voice trailed off. When what? When they destroyed our homeworld. The generators were on the planet when it died. The knowledge of how to build them died with our scientists. Nathan felt hope slipping away. So the secret is lost? Not lost, Zithara said quietly. Hidden. Before our world died, we hid copies of the plans in 20 different locations throughout our space, if any still exist. Suddenly, alarms started going off on Nathan's ship. Maria was already running toward the bridge. Commander, we have incoming ships. Nathan followed her, his heart pounding. On the screen, he could see 3 massive vessels approaching from deep space. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. The ships seemed to be alive, their surfaces rippling like skin. Dark energy crackled around them. Devourer scouts, Zithara said, appearing behind them. They must have detected your arrival. How? Fast are they? Nathan asked. Faster than any ship you have, but your vessel is small. If you run now, you might escape. Nathan looked at his crew. Maria was already starting the engines. Tony was powering up their few weapons, even though he knew they would be useless. Sam was copying all the data they had gathered. We can't leave you here, Nathan said to Zithara. The old Kethvar warrior smiled sadly. This asteroid has hidden us for 50 years. We will hide again. But you must go. You must warn your people. And you must find our hidden plans. Nathan wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. His mission was to gather information and return to Earth. If he died here, humanity would face the Devourers blind. Thank you, he said simply. Do not thank us yet, Zithara replied. Thank us when you save your species. Nathan ran to his ship as the Devourer scouts got closer. Maria had the engines ready and they jumped back into deep space just as the enemy ships reached the asteroid belt. As they flew toward home, Nathan looked back at the dead Vega system one last time. Somewhere in that cosmic graveyard were the plans that could save humanity. But first he had to deliver the worst news in human history. The Devourers were real. They were powerful beyond imagination. And now they knew that humans existed. The war was coming, whether humanity was ready or not. Nathan Brooks stood in the war room on Earth, his face tired from the long journey home. Admiral Patricia Hayes and her staff listened in silence as he told them what he had seen in the Vega system. The images from his ship's cameras showed the dead worlds and the horrible structures the Devourers had built from the remains. How many ships did you see? General Robert Kim asked. 3 scouts, Nathan replied. But the Kethvar survivors said the main fleet has thousands of ships, maybe tens of thousands. Dr. Elena Rodriguez leaned forward. Tell us more about this quantum static weapon. Nathan pulled up the data Sam had recorded. The old Kethvar warrior, Zithara, said her people had found a way to disrupt the Devourers' connection to each other. But the plans were hidden when their world was destroyed. Hidden where? Patricia asked. 20 different locations in Kethvar space. We'd have to search for them while avoiding Devourer patrols. Captain Lucy Brown, the intelligence chief, looked worried. That could take years. Do we have years? Before anyone could answer, alarms started ringing throughout the building. A communications officer ran into the room, his face pale with fear. "Admiral, we're getting emergency signals from the Proxima colony. They're under attack." Patricia felt the blood drain from her face. Proxima was the closest human colony to Earth, only 4 light-years away. "Put it on screen." The main display showed Captain Helen Rodriguez, commander of the defense ship USS Defiance. Helen was a veteran officer with 20 years of experience, but Nathan had never seen her look so scared. "Earth Command, this is Defiance. We are engaging unknown hostile ships at Proxima. They appeared without warning. Our weapons are having no effect. Repeat, our weapons are not working against these ships." The transmission cut to static for a moment, then came back. The camera was shaking and sparks were flying in the background. "They're using some kind of nanite weapon. It's eating through our hull. We're losing life support on decks 3 and 4. We need immediate backup." Another blast shook Helen's ship. "Wait, I'm seeing more ships coming out of jump space, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. This isn't just a scout force, this is an invasion fleet." The transmission ended in static. Patricia stood frozen for a moment, then sprang into action. "General, Kim, get every available ship to Proxima now. Rodriguez, contact all our allies. Brown, activate the emergency protocols." But they all knew it was probably too late. Lieutenant Alex Turner was flying his fighter through hell. His squadron had arrived at Proxima to find the colony's defense fleet already half destroyed. The Devourer ships were massive, each one the size of a city. They moved like living things, their surfaces rippling with dark energy. Alex was 26 years old and had been flying fighters for 5 years. He thought he was ready for anything. He was wrong. His squadron leader, Commander Mike Davis, led 12 fighters against a Devourer cruiser. Their missiles hit the enemy ship but seemed to have no effect. The dark metal simply absorbed the explosions and kept moving. "This is impossible," Davis said over the radio. "Our best weapons aren't even scratching them." Then the Devourer ship fired back. A cloud of tiny machines shot out from the enemy vessel. The nanites swarmed toward the human fighters like a silver storm. Alex watched in horror as they covered Commander Davis's ship. Within seconds, the fighter was gone, consumed down to its basic atoms. "All ships scatter!" Alex shouted into his radio. "Don't let those things touch you!" Alex pushed his engines to maximum and dove toward the planet's surface. Behind him, he could hear his fellow pilots screaming over the radio as their ships were eaten by the nanite swarms. Within minutes, his entire squadron was dead. He landed his damaged fighter at the colony's main spaceport. The city was in chaos. People were running everywhere, trying to get to the evacuation ships, but the ships were being destroyed as fast as they could launch. Governor Paul Martinez was in the command center trying to coordinate the evacuation. Paul was a good man who had spent 10 years making Proxima Colony a peaceful place for families to live. Now he was watching his world die. "How many people have we gotten off planet?" Paul asked his aide. "Maybe 50,000, sir. But we still have over 2 million people here." Paul looked at the tactical display. The Devourer ships were landing on the surface now, releasing more nanite swarms. Entire city blocks were disappearing, their matter converted into raw materials for the enemy. Alex ran into the command center, still wearing his flight suit. "Governor, we have to evacuate now. The defense fleet is gone." Paul shook his head. "We can't leave 2 million people. If we stay, we'll all die anyway." Paul was quiet for a long moment, then made the hardest decision of his life. He walked to the main control panel and entered his command codes. "What are you doing?" his aide asked. "If we can't save our people, we can at least deny this world to the enemy." Paul's finger hovered over a red button. "I'm activating the fusion reactor. Overload. The entire colony will be destroyed in 10 minutes. Alex grabbed Paul's arm. "You can't do that. There are still millions of people here." "Those people are already dead," Paul said quietly. "The nanites are consuming everything. But if we destroy the reactors, the Devourers won't be able to harvest our resources. They won't grow stronger from our deaths." With tears in his eyes, Paul pressed the button. The evacuation ships had 10 minutes to get as far away as possible. Alex helped load the last group of refugees, mostly children and elderly people who had been too slow to escape earlier. As his Ship lifted off. He could see the nanite cloud spreading across the planet's surface like a gray disease. At exactly 10 minutes, every fusion reactor on Proxima Colony exploded at the same time. The planet's surface turned white with nuclear fire. The Devourer ships in the atmosphere were caught in the blast and destroyed. But it was only a small victory. Most of the enemy fleet was still in space, and they were already moving toward the next human colony. On Earth, President Rachel Adams sat in her office reading the reports from Proxima. Rachel was a strong leader who had guided humanity through many crises, but this was beyond anything she had ever faced. Her military advisors were telling her that the Devourer fleet was 50 times larger than anything humanity could put together. Their technology was thousands of years ahead of human science. Conventional warfare was impossible. What about the Genesis Protocol? She asked Admiral Hayes. Patricia looked grim. The generation ships are ready. We could evacuate maybe 10 million people to distant galaxies, but that means abandoning Earth and all our colonies. And the other option? We fight. We probably lose. But maybe we buy time for someone else to escape. Rachel stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of the city. Millions of people going about their lives without knowing that their species might not exist in a few years. There's a third option, she said quietly. Ma'am, we find those Kethvar plans. We build the quantum static generators. We fight smart instead of fighting hard. Patricia shook her head. Rachel, we don't even know if those plans still exist. And if they do, we'd have to search 20 different locations in enemy territory. Then we'd better get started. As Rachel spoke, reports were coming in from across human space. The Devourer fleet had split up after destroying Proxima. Different groups were attacking different colonies. The pattern was always the same. The human defenses would fight bravely and die quickly. Then the planet would be consumed. But something strange was happening too. On some worlds, the defenders were trying Paul Martinez's strategy. Rather than let their planets be harvested, they were destroying everything the Devourers could use. It was costing human lives, but it was also slowing the enemy advance. The Devourers had expected humanity to fight like other species, trying to save their people and their worlds. Instead, humans were choosing to deny their enemies the resources they needed, even if it meant sacrificing themselves. For the first time in millions of years, the Devourers were confused. Their victims were not behaving as predicted, and confusion, even for a moment, was something they had not experienced in eons. In the deep space monitoring stations, operators were picking up strange signals from the enemy fleet. The perfect coordination that had marked their previous attacks was showing tiny flaws. Ships were taking slightly longer to respond to commands. The collective consciousness was adapting to human tactics, but it was taking time. Time that humanity desperately needed to find another way to fight. Dr. Amanda Foster had not slept in 4 days. She was working in an underground laboratory on Earth, deep beneath the mountains where the Devourers could not find her. Around her, the best scientists from 20 different human worlds were working, together to solve the greatest puzzle in galactic history. They had found 3 of the 20 hidden Kethvar data sites. Each one contained pieces of the quantum static generator plans, but the information was incomplete. Amanda's team was trying to put the pieces together like a jigsaw puzzle made of mathematics and alien science. I think I've got something, said Dr. Jason Lee, a young physicist who specialized in quantum mechanics. He was thin and pale from working without rest, but his eyes were bright with discovery. Look at these equations. The Kethvar weren't just trying to disrupt the Devourer network. They were trying to turn it against itself. Amanda hurried over to Jason's computer. The screen was covered with complex formulas that would take years to understand completely, but she could see the basic idea. They're using the Devourer's own connection as a weapon, she whispered. Instead of just breaking the link, they're sending false information through it. Exactly, Jason said excitedly. If we can make the collective consciousness think that some of its ships are enemies, they'll attack each other. While the scientists worked, Commander Nathan Brooks was leading a desperate mission in Kethvar space. His ship was one of 12 vessels searching for the remaining data sites. They had to work fast because Devourer patrols were getting stronger every day. Nathan's team had found 2 more data sites in the ruins of Kethvar research stations. Each discovery brought them closer to understanding the weapon, but it also brought them closer to being caught. "Commander," Maria Santos called from the pilot's seat. "I'm detecting 3 Devourer ships heading our way. They'll be here in 20 minutes. Nathan looked at the tactical display. His small fleet was spread across the system, searching different locations. If the Devourers found them, they would all be destroyed. "Send the signal," Nathan ordered. All ships returned to jump coordinates immediately, but as the human ships tried to escape, one of them was too slow. The cargo ship Braveheart was carrying scientists and computer equipment. It could not run as fast as the military vessels. Captain Tim Walsh, the Braveheart's commander, made a decision that would save the mission. He ordered his ship to turn around and face the approaching Devourer vessels. "This is Walsh to all ships," he said over the radio. "We're going to buy you time to escape. Tell Earth that we found what they need." Nathan wanted to go back and help, but he knew Tim was right. The data they had gathered was too important to lose. The Braveheart fought alone against 3 massive Devourer ships. Captain Walsh's small cargo vessel had only basic weapons, but he used them well. He fired everything he had and then rammed his ship into the largest enemy vessel. The explosion was visible from 1,000,000 kilometers away. The Braveheart and 1 Devourer ship were destroyed together. The other 2 enemy ships were damaged and had to retreat. Tim Walsh and his crew were dead, but their sacrifice gave the other ships time to escape with the data. Back on Earth, the news from the front lines was getting worse every day. The Devourers had destroyed 8 human colonies and were moving toward more populated worlds. Admiral Patricia Hayes was running out of ships and running out of time. But then Dr. Foster's team made their breakthrough. "We've got it," Amanda announced, to the War Council. Her voice was hoarse from exhaustion, but she was smiling for the first time in weeks. "We understand how the quantum static generators work. We can build them." General Robert Kim leaned forward. "How long will it take?" 6 weeks if we use every factory in human space, but there's a problem." "What problem?" President Rachel Adams asked. "The generators have to be placed at very specific points around the Devourer fleet, and someone has to activate them manually. It's a suicide mission." The room was quiet. Everyone understood what Amanda meant. To use the weapon, human ships would have to fly directly into the middle of the enemy fleet. Commander Nathan Brooks spoke first. "I'll do it." "Nathan, you've done enough," Admiral Hayes said. "No, I haven't. I've seen what these things can do. I've talked to the survivors of the races they destroyed. This ends with us, or it doesn't end at all." Over the next 6 weeks, every human factory worked day and night to build the quantum static generators. Workers like Danny Walsh on New Detroit pushed their machines beyond all limits. Teachers like Karen Murphy learned to build weapons instead of teaching children. Mechanics like Steve Parker worked 20-hour days to make sure every component was perfect. Meanwhile, the Devourer fleet was approaching Earth. They had consumed 12 human colonies, and their ships were now visibly larger and more powerful. Each victory made them stronger, but humanity had learned something important during the war. When faced with impossible odds, humans did not give up. They found new ways to fight. The final battle took place in the space between Mars and Earth. The Devourer fleet emerged from jump space like a dark cloud that blocked out the stars. There were thousands of ships, each one the size of a city. Against them, humanity sent everything they had. Admiral Hayes commanded the defense fleet from her flagship, the Defiance II. Nathan Brooks led a squadron of volunteers carrying the quantum static generators. The battle was unlike anything in galactic history. Human ships fought with desperate courage while Nathan's team penetrated deep into the enemy formation. They lost 3 ships before reaching the first generator placement point. "Generator 1 activated," Nathan reported as his engineer Sam Carter armed the device. The quantum static began to work immediately. Across the Devourer fleet, ships started receiving false commands. Some vessels turned to attack their neighbors. Others stopped moving entirely as their collective consciousness became confused. But the Devourers were learning. They began to adapt to the static, creating new communication channels. "We need more generators online now," Nathan shouted into his radio. Tony Rodriguez, flying the second generator ship, was under heavy fire from nanite swarms. "I'm hit, but still flying. Generator 2 is ready." One by one, Nathan's team activated the quantum static generators around the Devourer fleet. With each activation, the enemy became more confused and disorganized. But it wasn't enough. The Devourers were still too strong and they were adapting too quickly. Then something unexpected happened. From the outer system, new ships appeared. They were Kethvar vessels, ancient and damaged, but still fighting. Zithara's voice came over the radio. "Warriors of the third spiral, we bring our final gift." The surviving Kethvar ships were carrying their own quantum static generators, built from plans they had hidden for 50 years. They had been waiting for this moment, for someone to give them hope of victory. With both human and Kethvar generators working together, the Devourer collective consciousness finally collapsed. For the first time in millions of years, the individual, minds that made up the swarm, remembered what it was like to think alone. They panicked. Ships that had been perfectly coordinated began crashing into each other. The nanite swarms turned on their own vessels. The greatest force in galactic history tore itself apart in confusion and fear. When the battle ended, the space around Earth was filled with the wreckage of the Devourer fleet. Some ships escaped and fled toward the galactic core, but their power was broken. Nathan Brooks stood on the bridge of his damaged ship, looking out at the debris field. Humanity had won, but the cost had been enormous. Half the human fleet was destroyed, and billions of people had died in the war. But they had done something no other species had managed in millions of years. They had stopped the Devourers. Admiral Patricia Hayes, now promoted to Grand Admiral of the new Galactic Defense Force, established monitoring stations throughout known space. Humanity and their alien allies would watch for any sign that the Devourers were rebuilding. The distress signal that had started everything was replaced by a new message, broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. "This is Earth calling. If you can hear this, you are not alone. The darkness has been pushed back, the galaxy is free." And in the deep monitoring stations, operators like Lisa Martinez listened to the stars, no longer afraid of what they might hear in the darkness. The age of fear was over. The age of hope had begun,